Two 15-year-old twin sisters walk into a gas station on a quiet Sunday afternoon in Augusta, Georgia. They buy chips, candy, and soda. The clerk knows them well, notices nothing unusual. They walk out together, never to be seen again. But here's what makes this case absolutely chilling. Within a year, police close the case claiming the girls were found. The family never sees them. 3 years later, their names are mysteriously removed from the National Missing Children database. For over 2 decades, it's as if Dannette and Jeannette Millbrook never existed. March 18, 1990. That's the date that would forever shatter the Millbrook family and expose one of the most disturbing examples of investigative negligence in American history. This isn't just another missing persons case. This is the story of how 2 black teenage girls disappeared from their neighborhood, and how a system designed to protect children failed so spectacularly that it took 23 years for anyone to even look for them again. The twins had just turned 15. Dannette Latonia Millbrook and Jeannette Latrice Millbrook were fraternal twins, but they couldn't have been more different. Jeannette was the quiet one, sweet and reserved, someone who loved kids and animals. Dannette was her protector, louder, always ready to stand up for her sister when needed. They lived with their mother, Mary Louise Sturgis, and their younger sister Shanta in the Cooney Circle Apartments, a housing project in Augusta. Their father, John Millbrook, had been out of the picture since the twins were 2 years old. Louise had divorced him due to his abusive behavior, determined to protect her children. That Sunday started like any other. The family attended church together in the morning, then returned home for lunch. It was a normal day in what seemed like a normal life. But by evening, 2 members of the Millbrook family would be gone forever. The twins had left their apartment 3 times that day. First for church, then to pick up lunch from Church's Chicken on Milledgeville Road, and finally to collect bus fare from their grandfather. It was during this 3rd trip that everything went wrong. They stopped at the Pump and Shop gas station on the corner of 12th Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. This wasn't unusual. They knew the area well, and the clerk, Gloria, recognized them immediately. The twins bought their snacks, chatted briefly, and left together. Gloria would later become a crucial witness, not because she saw something suspicious, but because she didn't. Everything appeared completely normal. The twins seemed relaxed, happy even. There was no sign of distress, no indication that anything was wrong. But here's where the story takes its first disturbing turn. Gloria noticed a vehicle parked outside the gas station while the twins were inside. She couldn't provide a description of the car or its occupants, but its presence would later become a haunting detail in a case full of unanswered questions. The twins never made it home. When evening came and Dannette and Jeannette hadn't returned, their mother Louise began to worry. This wasn't like them. Despite having 8 siblings total, the twins were homebodies. They didn't hang out on street corners or stay out late without permission. By nightfall, panic had set in. Louise called the police, but what happened next would set the tone for one of the most mishandled missing persons investigations in recent memory. The initial response was swift, but not in the way you might expect. Instead of launching an immediate search, police quickly labeled the twins as runaways. No extensive search was conducted. No neighborhood canvassing took place. The assumption was simple and devastating. These were just 2 black girls from the projects who had decided to run away from home. But the runaway theory made absolutely no sense. These girls had no identification, no documentation, and roughly $20 between them. They were 15 years old in an era before cell phones or social media. Where exactly were they supposed to run to? The family knew something terrible had happened. 12-year-old Shanta even walked with her mother that first night, searching the neighborhood, calling out their names into the darkness. But police weren't interested in searching. They were interested in closing cases. What happened next reveals just how broken the system truly was. The original investigator, whose name remains in the case files, made errors that would haunt this investigation for decades. He misspelled the twins' last name as Millbrooks in official reports. He listed Jeannette's middle name incorrectly as Latressa instead of Latrice. These weren't minor clerical errors. These were mistakes that would make it harder for anyone searching databases to find information about the missing girls. But the real catastrophe was yet to come. In April 1991, just over a year after the twins disappeared, the investigating detective visited the Millbrook family home. He delivered news that should have brought relief, but instead brought confusion and heartbreak. The case was being closed, he told Louise. The reason? The twins had been found. Louise was stunned. Found where? When? Why hadn't anyone contacted the family? The detective's explanation was as bizarre as it was cruel. He claimed the girls were now 17 years old, and therefore could not be legally forced to return home even if they were located. But here's the problem with that explanation. The twins had disappeared in March 1990 when they were 15. By April 1991, they would have been 16, not 17. More importantly, if they had truly been found, why hadn't they contacted their family? Why hadn't they called their mother, their siblings, anyone? The family never received any proof that their daughters had been located. No phone call, no letter, no message of any kind. For a family that had been desperately searching for over a year, this explanation felt like a cruel joke. Yet the case remained officially closed. The twins' names stayed in the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children database for 2 more years, until 1993, when police called to have them permanently removed. The reason given to the center was that the girls had been found. The reason given to the family was that they couldn't be forced to come home. Which story was true? How could both explanations coexist? These questions would torment the Millbrook family for the next 2 decades. Meanwhile, life in Augusta continued. The twins' mother, Louise, struggled with grief and unanswered questions. Their younger sister, Shanta, grew up watching her mother cry every day, seeing the pain that never went away. She made herself a promise that would define her adult life. She would never stop looking for her sisters. If you've made it this far in this story, you're probably feeling the same frustration and anger that the Millbrook family lived with every single day. The system that was supposed to protect these girls had not just failed them, it had actively worked against finding them. But before we continue, I need you to do something. If this story is making you feel anything at all, if you're invested in seeing justice for Dannette and Jeannette, hit that like button right now. And if you want to see more cases like this exposed, subscribe to this channel, because what comes next will shock you even more. The original case file disappeared. Not misplaced, not misfiled, but completely gone. Every piece of physical evidence, every witness statement, every photograph from the initial investigation simply vanished from the Richmond County Sheriff's Office records. This wasn't discovered until years later when family members tried to access information about the case. They were told that no such file existed. For a family already devastated by the loss of 2 daughters, this was another crushing blow. It was as if their children had been erased from official memory, but Shanta Sturgis refused to let her sisters be forgotten. As she grew older, she became more vocal, more persistent. She called the sheriff's office regularly, demanding answers, demanding action. She was told repeatedly that there was nothing more that could be done. Everything changed in 2013 when Richmond County elected a new sheriff, Richard Roundtree. Unlike his predecessors, Roundtree was willing to listen when Shanta Sturgis called his office demanding answers about her missing sisters. For the first time in over 2 decades, someone in law enforcement took the Millbrook case seriously. Sheriff Roundtree made a decision that would reignite hope for the family. He officially reopened the investigation into the disappearance of Dannette and Jeannette Millbrook. But reopening a case with no file, no physical evidence, and faded memories presented enormous challenges. The investigators had to start from scratch, conducting interviews with family members, friends, and anyone who might remember something from that March day in 1990. The reopened investigation revealed disturbing details that had been overlooked or ignored in the original case. The gas station where the twins were last seen was in an area known for criminal activity. There had been other disappearances of young women in Augusta around the same time period. Yet none of these connections had been properly investigated. In 2017, something remarkable happened. A podcast called The Fall Line began investigating the Millbrook twins case in depth. The podcast hosts, Laura Norton and Brooke Hargrove, brought fresh eyes and thorough research to a case that had been ignored for decades. Their work uncovered inconsistencies, raised new questions, and most importantly, kept the twins' story in the public consciousness. They even helped raise a $10,000 reward for information leading to the twins' whereabouts. 2 years later, in 2019, the Oxygen Network aired a documentary series called The Disappearance of the Millbrook Twins. This brought national attention to the case for the first time, exposing the failures of the original investigation to a broader audience. The documentary raised uncomfortable questions about whether racism and classism had played a role in how the case was handled. 2 black teenage girls from a housing project had essentially been written off as runaways without any real investigation. Would the response have been different if they had been white girls from a wealthy neighborhood? But here's where this story takes a hopeful turn. In late 2023, the Millbrook family announced that they had hired their first-ever private investigator. Funded by private donors from a non-profit organization, this investigator has been working the case for several months and has already uncovered potential new information. Shanta Sturgis, now in her 40s, remains cautiously optimistic. She told reporters that the private investigator has identified new persons of interest and is systematically ruling out suspects, including registered sex offenders who were living in the Augusta area in 1990. The investigator has also been conducting searches in areas where the twins might have been taken, including locations around the Brickyard Pond area that had been mentioned by unreliable witnesses in previous years. While Shanta keeps most details confidential to protect the ongoing investigation, she has hinted that cadaver dogs may be assisting in these searches. A new billboard has been erected in Augusta, featuring photos of what the twins might look like today. The reward money has grown over the years, now offering up to $50,000 for information leading to their whereabouts or the resolution of their case. The billboard directs people to a website where tips can be submitted anonymously. This technological advancement represents something the original investigation never had, a way for people with information to come forward without fear. If you're watching this and you lived in Augusta, Georgia in 1990, if you remember seeing these twins, if you have any information at all, please don't keep it to yourself. 2 families have been living in agony for over 3 decades. Your information could be the key that finally brings them peace. The case has also revealed broader problems with how missing persons cases are handled, particularly when the victims are young people of color from disadvantaged communities. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has since implemented better tracking systems to prevent cases from being incorrectly closed or removed from databases. Today, Dannette and Jeannette would be 49 years old. Their mother, Louise, now approaching 70, continues to hope for answers. Their father, John, passed away in 2021, never knowing what happened to his daughters. Shanta Sturgis runs a Facebook page called Missing Dannette and Jeannette Millbrook, where she shares updates and keeps their memory alive. She has dedicated her adult life to finding her sisters, becoming a voice for other families of missing persons who feel ignored by the system. The DNA profiles of both twins have been entered into national databases. If remains are ever found, identification would be possible. Advanced forensic techniques that didn't exist in 1990 are now available to help solve cold cases like this one. Recent advances in genealogical DNA testing have helped solve numerous cold cases across the country. While the Millbrook case doesn't yet have physical evidence to test, these scientific breakthroughs offer hope that future discoveries could lead to answers. The private investigator currently working the case has expressed confidence that it can be solved. Unlike previous efforts, this investigation has resources, modern technology, and most importantly, a commitment to finding the truth, regardless of how long it takes. 34 years have passed since Dannette and Jeannette Millbrook walked out of that gas station and into oblivion. 34 years of unanswered questions, sleepless nights, and a mother's endless grief. This case represents everything wrong with how society treats its most vulnerable members. Two young black girls from a poor neighborhood were dismissed as runaways without investigation. Their case file disappeared. Their names were removed from missing children databases based on false information. But it also represents the power of family love and determination. Shanta Sturgis never gave up. She fought for decades to get someone to listen, to care, to investigate. Her persistence reopened this case and brought it national attention. The Millbrook twins case reminds us that every missing person matters. Every disappearance deserves a thorough investigation. Every family deserves answers. As we close this story, remember that it's not over. Somewhere out there, someone knows what happened to Dannette and Jeannette Millbrook. Someone has information that could finally bring peace to a family that has suffered for over 3 decades. If this case has moved you, if you believe that justice delayed should not be justice denied, then share this story. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and help us keep these cases in the public eye. Because the moment we stop talking about the disappeared is the moment we let them disappear forever. The Millbrook twins deserve justice. Their family deserves answers, and until both are achieved, their story must continue to be told.